Hey everybody, welcome into Faith in Football. My name is Neil. Today's show, the rookie episode you've been waiting for. We're not going to talk about all the rookies today, but we will be touching on those who I believe will be making a fantasy football impact their rookie year. This year's squad is deep, okay? The wide receiver class, especially. There's a lot of anticipation over the top guys in the class, and we're going to be showing how Peter and the other disciples were kind of like rookies in the beginning. And much like rookies, after they get some experience under their belt, they're able to be productive. They're able to do things that they're supposed to be doing, that they're expected to be doing. So, where's the scripture in this one? How are you? And I know you might be asking, hey, how are you equating rookies in the NFL to the disciples? Well, if we look at Luke chapter 5, verse 8, this is where Peter and Jesus met, where he got in the boat, he was preaching to people on the shore, and Peter had been fishing all day or all night, and he was cleaning his nets. Jesus asked him to borrow his boat. He borrowed it, stood up on the boat, he was able to preach to the people, and afterwards he told them to drop their nets down for a catch. Now, Peter told him, hey, look, we've been fishing, we haven't caught anything. And he was probably thinking, look, I'm a professional. We've been doing this a while. You're a carpenter. What do you know about fishing? But he said, because you said so, we will do as you say. Threw the nets down, and the catch was so great that they couldn't believe it, that it almost sank the boat. And his partners, the sons of Zebedee, James and John, they couldn't believe it either. Now, in Luke chapter 5, verse 8, in the NLT, we see Peter coming out, and he comes up to Jesus, and he realizes something. He realizes who this is. So this is what it says. When Simon Peter realized what had happened, he fell to his knees before Jesus and said, "O Lord, please leave me. I'm such a sinful man." Now, how many of you think that there's something that you've done, that you're beyond redemption, that no matter how hard you try, you're just not going to be holy enough or Christian enough or godly enough for forgiveness? Well, that's not really how it works. You don't have to be church going. You don't have to be holier than thou. You don't have to be perfect to receive forgiveness. Jesus is ready to forgive you as you are. Now, some of these rookies that we're going to be talking about, they're ready to go as they are. Some of them need some work. Peter needed some work. He was hot tempered, short sighted. He didn't think that much of himself. And, well, as that much of himself as far as being a man of God. He was kind of cocky in other areas and really bullheaded. So I can attest to feeling like that at times. Um, but as he progressed with the guidance of Jesus, we see later on in Acts that not only did he show how much he had learned, how much he had grown, but others noticed the change and what was inside of him, that before he didn't even have to tell them who he had walked with. He didn't even have to say where he got this education from, because they already saw it. So if we look in Acts chapter 4, verse 13, again in the NLT, in Acts chapter 4, we see that Peter had healed a crippled man. And some religious leaders really didn't like that too much. So they pulled him before the court, and they were like, by whose authority do you do this? And they wanted to know how this happened, how he was able to do this. And he stood up and he told them, filled with the Holy Ghost, what happened, like how he was able to do this and by whose authority he acted in. Now, the members of the council that was questioning him, this was what they thought and what they saw. This is chapter 13 of, or sorry, verse 13 of chapter 4. The members of the council were amazed when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, for they could see that they were ordinary men with no special training in the scriptures. They also recognized them as men who had been with Jesus. Now, how many people at your job, maybe even in your own family, and I'm talking, your extended family, your aunts, your uncles, your parents, grandparents, things like that, how many of them know you're a Christian? How many of them know that you speak the word of God, that you believe what you believe about Jesus, about God, about heaven, about how to get there? If you're not speaking it, if you're not acting in it, then nobody's going to know. That's like one of these rookies just sitting on the bench. We don't know how they're going to perform in the NFL. I remember being down in Louisiana. I get a lot of LSU exposure. So Jamarcus Russell was a great quarterback for the Tigers, okay, for LSU. And he went to the Raiders. Was a total bust. Just was straight garbage in the NFL. And you saw the exposure, or the NFL exposed what was underneath. There was no training. He was just relying solely on natural ability. This guy was a phenomenal natural athlete. In college, you could mask that. You could kind of cover up your inefficiencies in a lesser league, in a league that you were playing against guys who weren't going to make the NFL, guys who were going to be selling cars or insurance or fixing your computer in a few years. Okay, these guys weren't that level of athletes. Okay, there's a very small percentage of college players that make it to the NFL. Remember, there's only 32 teams and 52 men per squad, while there's like 150 something colleges. Not everybody's going to make it. You have to be special. Okay. Now, what I love about being a follower of Christ is the fact that I don't have to be that special in order to do good and to benefit the kingdom of God. All I've got to do is listen to what God tells me, walk in obedience, and rely on him to guide me through things. And that's why I'm on this channel. And while you're on this channel, down the bottom, subscribe, like, share, hit the notification button so you know when I'm going live and when I'm putting up new material. And remember, next episode, right after this one. So when you see this one, the very next episode is going to be our special mock draft episode with my boy Blaze. We're going to be doing a 10-round mock draft. It's not going to be the full draft. We're only going to get the top 10. And he's a newbie, much like Peter was back in Luke. He's a newbie. He has absolutely no knowledge of football or fantasy football, or I'm sorry, very limited knowledge of NFL football and no experience in fantasy football whatsoever. He's a true newbie, which is what this channel is made for. We're here to guide. We're here to inform, to kind of give direction to. So he is the epitome of what this channel is based for. So, like I was saying, being a follower of God and is just so humbling to know that, and encouraging to know that I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to have everything in line. Just have to go. Remember a few episodes ago, we talked about the children of Israel and Caleb, one of the spies, just going, hey, let's just go in and do it. Sometimes that's all you got to do is go in and do it. So while you're watching this channel and you just want to go into fantasy football, look, the best way to learn it is to do it. So dive in. Real quick, I do want to do a little kind of show and tell here, I guess. So I'm going to show you guys on Sleeper real quick before we get into the rookies about how to go about mock drafting. Okay. So I've already got it pulled up, and here we go. So this is the homepage for my Sleeper app. This is on my laptop. Now on your phone, it's going to look a little different, but all the buttons are still the same. Okay. So when you see over here, that is Zia Thunderdome 2023. That was our name last year. It's going to be our name this year. We're just continuing. But this is my league of record. Okay. And this is my name down here. The champ is here. So last year I was the champ's husband because my wife was the reigning champ of our league. So since I won, I changed my name. Now there's two options that you have here on Sleeper. You can either go here to this where it says mock draft, and you can mock draft from here. Now that's great. That's perfectly fine if you want to do that. The only thing is that in this one, you have to manually set all of your settings for scoring, for roster construction. So if you want to, if you see right here, now I've already gone in and set it. And here I had 3 flex, here I have 2 flex. Typically I've already gone in and redone all my settings, but normally what it'll come up to is it'll be one quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receiver, a tight end, 1 flex, a kicker, and a defense, or 2 flexes, a kicker and a defense. And you have to physically go in and change those settings for your mock draft. Or what you can do is just this. You select your league that you're practicing for, and you're going to see up here where it says draft, and make sure you're on that. And you're going to go down here where it says mock draft, and you click on that, and it's going to pull up here. So where you start new mock draft, you hit new mock draft, and it'll bring you to a new mock draft with all of the league settings for that specific league. So if you're playing multiple leagues, you want to make sure that you're practicing according to the league that you're in. So if you're not doing it like this, I strongly suggest that you start. Make sure that you're selecting new mock draft under the league homepage, not under mock drafts over here. So you're going to here, your league that you're on, and make sure you're on the draft board, and that we have a countdown to, it's going to give a countdown, and your commissioner will have all of the settings already done. You just hit mock drafts and new mock draft, and you see this one's paused because I was doing one earlier today. So hit new mock draft, and it'll bring you up to this. It's already set up with all of the parameters that are specific to your league. So I hope that helped out a little bit to show you what you're looking at as far as mock drafting goes. Remember, we're in August, guys. There are games going on tonight. This is being recorded on August 8th, Thursday. So there's a couple of games that are going on right now. I believe Lions and Giants are one. And I think the Bears and someone else, but I'm not sure who. But it's preseason. Now, I will give you a bit of advice for preseason football. I personally don't put a lot of stock in how teams perform or how starters perform, because if they're starters, 9 times out of 10, they're not going at full tilt. They're just there to kind of work out the kinks, work out things here and there. There's really not a whole lot of emphasis on it for the starters. My focus on preseason football is this. I'm looking, one, for injuries, because we've already had a few. I went over Justin Herbert's plantar fascia, and I'm butchering that, so forgive me, but it's a foot injury that he's suffering with right now. DeAndre Hopkins has a knee injury that he's dealing with. Just today, Josh Downs, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, also came up with a knee injury. So who knows how long he's going to be out. The report that I'm hearing is about a month. So it's good to keep an eye out and an ear out for the injury news that's coming out of camp and preseason football, so that you can adjust your expectations on certain players. With the DeAndre Hopkins news as an example, Calvin Ridley becomes much more valuable. Also with the Josh Downs injury, Michael Pittman Jr. does become more valuable. So those are things that you need to look for. In deeper leagues, if you're playing a 14-team league, or if you're looking for somebody to step up, guys like Alec Pierce, who is a third wide receiver for Indianapolis Colts, he might be elevated. Adonai Mitchell, who is a rookie wide receiver for Indianapolis Colts, may be elevated there as well. So it's kind of hard to tell who's going to be what, but it's worth keeping an eye out for. Also, I was watching the Hall of Fame game, and something that stood out to me was that Cam Akers, newly signed Cam Akers, when he was playing, I didn't really see a lot of explosiveness out of him. Now, I was upset the fact that the Texans had signed him, because I really wanted Joe Mixon just to have at it and go. But when I saw Cam Akers out there and not be the explosive back that I remember him being with the Rams before he got injured, when he was a rookie, I was okay, fine, cool. Joe Mixon, full go. I'm cool with that. So it's things like that you need to extrapolate out of preseason. Don't really put a whole lot of stock in how starters go and how defenses play, because nobody's throwing the whole playbook out there. This is just going through the motions, and it's just like an elevated scrimmage at this point. So let's jump into some rookies. And remember, as we're going through this, that at some point in time, we're all rookies. We're all new to this. I'm new to this YouTube thing. As far as doing a channel, even though I have been doing it for a little bit, I'm learning constantly, and I hope you like it. Down the bottom, do me a favor. If you are not somebody that I work with or that I play fantasy football with, let me know where you're watching from. I would love to know where I'm reaching you today. So down the bottom, leave me a comment. Okay, appreciate it. So, of course, we're going to start at the top, and at the top, number one overall to the Chicago Bears via the trade last year with the Carolina Panthers. Caleb Williams, formerly of USC, and the number one overall pick this year. He goes to a team with a PFF, that's Pro Football Focus, ranking of 11 for their O-line. Now, not a bad situation for a rookie to be dropped into, having a top 12 offensive line. Really good situation for this kid. Now, most of the time, if you are the number one overall pick, you're going to the worst team in football. Not the case because of the trade. So Caleb Williams really lucked out this year. Okay. He gets Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, who they went out and got specifically to make sure that Caleb Williams has as much support as humanly possible. They also signed Gerald Everett as tight end, and they have Cole Kmet there as well. Now, with having a defense that is decent, is a good defense in Chicago, having a outstanding run game, and having O-line ranked 11th, on top of having all of these offensive weapons as receivers, Caleb Williams is poised to have a absolutely wonderful, fantabulous, phenomenal rookie year. It's almost bust proof. Almost. I'm not going to put bust proof on this kid because I'm not going to put that much pressure on it. But he's in a really good situation. So you might be thinking, well, why isn't he going higher? Here's the reason why. Most of the time, when you have a rookie quarterback, rookie quarterbacks do not throw a lot of touchdown passes. Okay. So, especially if you have a good defense like Caleb Williams does, there's not a whole lot of production. So he might wind up this year being a great NFL quarterback and having a great rookie season, but not being that much for fantasy football. So why draft him? Well, here's the thing. You're not drafting him to be your starter. You're drafting him to be your backup just in case he takes off. So when you run through your mock draft, go ahead. If this is one of those situations where if you take a quarterback way early, like you take one of the top 4 guys. So if you're taking Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud, those guys, if you're taking, or Lamar Jackson, if you're taking those guys, this should be your backup. Okay. So what do you do if he takes off and you still have one of the top tier quarterbacks on your roster? That's what we call trade bait. So you need to look at your roster, look at your team, and go, okay, where do I need help? Maybe you lost a wide receiver to injury. Maybe you lost a running back to injury. Maybe somebody tanked that you thought was going to be awesome. That's where one of these quarterbacks comes in, because you can always stream a quarterback off of the waiver wire, and we'll get into that later in the season. But just know that because you only start one quarterback, having 2 phenomenal quarterbacks on your squad, the only good thing about that is that your opponents don't have that. So later on in the season, we'll go over, because trust me, we will have plenty of opportunity to talk trades later on in the season. Last year, I averaged, I believe it was about a trade and a half per week. Yes, I pulled a trade every single week last year, and it was awesome. So I love trading. I love the back and forth, and the wheeling and dealing that goes on. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's a rush to do it in fantasy football, and it shows that you have an active league. So I love having an active league. It's much more fun to play with those guys than it is to play with guys who are kind of, no, I'm good, I'll stay with what I got, even though they're terrible. So that's a little insight on Caleb Williams. The next guy, the number 2 quarterback off the board, at the number 2 spot, Jayden Daniels from my Washington Redskins. Yes, I know they're the Commanders, but I've told you before, I'm always referring to them as the Redskins. Formerly of LSU, so got a lot of exposure to Jayden Daniels. He was with Arizona State and Herm Edwards. If you saw him, and here's the thing, if you saw Jayden Daniels in Arizona or Arizona State, totally different quarterback than what LSU got, because Arizona State tried to cover up his insufficiencies. So what LSU did was they forced this kid to hold the ball, to look downfield, to be a smarter quarterback, and it paid off in the sense of he won the Heisman. This is a Heisman winning quarterback, and I know Heisman doesn't always translate to a great quarterback in the NFL, but for those who are fellow Washington fans or are old enough to remember my boy RG3, I loved RG3 when he came out, led us to our first division title, and I can't tell you how long back in 2012, with the help of Kirk Cousins. So shout out to Captain Kirk. But Jayden Daniels is RG3 2.0. Okay. He is Robert Griffin III for this year. Okay. He is a mobile, strong-armed quarterback. He's got wheels like you cannot believe. And he's a smart guy. Okay. You don't see him making a whole lot of mistakes. And everything that I'm seeing coming out of camp, all the reports, is that is all true. So he's been phenomenal in camp. The receivers loving him. The team's loving him. He's been a leader. He's been humble. He's taken charge. He knows how to be that alpha in the locker room, in the huddle, which is what you're looking for. And yes, here's the thing. Because he's a mobile quarterback, the rushing upside of this kid can put you through the roof in fantasy. This is what they call the Konami code for quarterbacks, is if you are a mobile quarterback. This is why guys like Josh Allen, even though he's not mobile, he does have a lot of goal line work. So he is a cheat code. Kyler Murray is a cheat code. Anthony Richardson being a mobile quarterback as well. And Jayden Daniels is being a mobile quarterback. And we saw last year with Justin Fields in Chicago, once they released this guy, Justin Fields went bananas running the ball. Now, probably because he was holding the ball too long and the pocket collapsed. So, but with Jayden Daniels, I see a whole lot of RPOs, which is run pass option, where he can, self-explanatory. He can run the ball, he can pass the ball. He has that option. Okay. So I see a lot of design runs for this guy coming in. And with the way that Cliff Kingsbury runs an offense, this is going to be a very high, fast-paced offense that they're going to be running in Washington this year. It will probably lead the league in plays per game, okay, or plays per possession, which is fabulous for fantasy football. And they have a bad defense. I hate to say it, but they do. So they're probably going to be involved in a lot of shootouts. So the scoring is going to be off the chart. Now, Jayden Daniels is going after Caleb Williams. Why? Because of the situation. He's not into as good of a situation as Caleb Williams is. He's got a bad offensive line, so we don't know how that's going to go. He's got Terry McLaurin, who has been a steady Eddie when it comes to production for fantasy football. Over the last 4 years that he's been in the league, he has had 1,000-yard seasons every single year with horrible quarterback play, and that is phenomenal. That's a testament to his skill and his talent. So Scary Terry might actually be scary this year. So I'm excited to see what Washington is going to do with these guys. Then there's Jahan Dotson, Luke McCaffrey, who is, yes, he is Christian McCaffrey's brother. And if he is anything like his brother, we remember, if you're old enough to, like me, to remember Ed McCaffrey, the wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, he was a great, hardworking, go-to wide receiver back in his day. And he has instilled those traits in both of his sons. We see the work ethic and the potential, or the production, out of Christian McCaffrey, CMC, in San Francisco with the Niners. And I'm excited to see Luke McCaffrey, rookie wide receiver for Washington, see what he does. Now, also Zach Ertz is there at tight end, but this guy, Ben Sinnott, who is probably the only other rookie tight end that I will be talking about today. But yes, both of them are there. Cliff Kingsbury has probably a soft place in his heart for Zach Ertz, but Zach Ertz is, for all intents and purposes, ancient when it comes to the NFL, and I don't see him being that productive in Washington, and Ben will just hopefully take over because I like everything that I've seen out of this guy. Now, I'm gonna kind of go through quicker some of the other quarterbacks because I don't see these guys being that intricate to NFL this year. Before I do, you guys know what time it is. It's time to recognize Zia of Lafayette down on 235 Doucet Road in Lafayette, Louisiana. If you are in town and you go stop by Zia, not Zeus's, Zia Lafayette, then you mention that you heard about them on this show with me. Show them that you are subscribed to my channel, and for your table, you can get one appetizer of your choice. That's right, whatever appetizer you want. Let them know that Neil sent you from Faith in Football, and let the manager on duty know that you're a subscriber of mine, and he or she will be happy to get you a appetizer of your choice. And who knows, you might see me down there as well. So make sure you go down and check them out. If you are around town and you need some catering done, give them a call, 337-406-0013. Speak to one of the staff members down there, or maybe even Andy, who is the head of our catering department, and speak to them, and they will hook you up with some Thai ribs, some rotisserie chicken, which is off the chain, maybe some shrimp Burbridge, whatever you need for your event. They can handle it. Go down there, check them out, tell them Neil sent you. Okay. Also, real quick, and I'm gonna save one of my sponsors for later. We're gonna mention them, but gotta mention my boy Dusty and Keller's Bakery in Youngsville, at 627 Lafayette Street in Youngsville, Louisiana. Now, they're going to be opening up here shortly. I'm going to be down there doing a live here in the next week or so. So make sure that down the bottom, subscribe, like, share, and hit the bell. So you click on the bell so you know when I'm going live, and you can go ahead and join me, and you can see a little behind the scenes of what's going on down at Keller's. Look, all the sweet stuff that we're going to have at our draft is coming from Keller's. He brings it every year for us. No, that's not the only reason that he's playing. It helps, but it's not the only reason that he's playing. He's a really good fantasy player and a good friend of mine. So, Dusty, you listening? Love you, buddy. But go down and see Keller's Bakery, Youngsville. Remember, in Youngsville, not the one downtown. Their hours are Tuesday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Tell them Neil sent you, and we're going to work out a little something whenever they open up and see what they're promoting for that month. It might change every month, or we just keep it the same thing all season long. TBD on that. So, other rookie quarterbacks, and where they landed. Bo Nix ended up with Denver by way of Oregon. So he goes from being a Duck to being a Bronco. Now, all reports that I'm hearing out of camp is he's not doing that well. So don't look at him to start anytime soon, barring injury to whoever they decide to start in Denver. Sean Payton is there, and he is revamping this team in his image, and he wants to have his people in places that he wants them. JJ McCarthy is with the Vikings in Minnesota by way of the national champions, Michigan Wolverines. They have a PFF O-line ranking of 13. So not bad. By the way, Bo Nix has a PFF line in Denver, O-line in Denver of 15. So about middle of the road. So not too shabby. Could be a little better. But JJ McCarthy is in a very unique situation. I believe that he is going to be starting at least by probably week 7 or 8. I know that they have a really tough schedule to start the season. So this is normally what that means. Sam Darnold, the journeyman quarterback, who has been a backup everywhere and a starter a couple places, just really has never stepped into that starter role. And he's probably going to be the starting quarterback week 1 for the Vikings. Now, JJ McCarthy, I believe, does have what it takes to be a starter in the NFL, plus the fact that he's stepping into having Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, barring a suspension for being stupid in a vehicle. But that's something that you guys need to go do research on and check out and follow, because along with Rashid Rice in Kansas City, Jordan Addison is also possibly looking at suspension maybe this year. So keep an eye out on those 2 receivers as your drafts come up. But JJ McCarthy, very good situation in Minnesota. Offensively, I think they have a decent run game, but they have the best wide receiver in football for him to throw to. And I think he has the skills that can be beneficial for fantasy football. So something to follow, something to look for later in the season. If your backup or if your starting quarterback is not producing, this might be somebody that you want to throw secretly on your roster, pick them up off the waiver wire after the draft, stash them away. And I'll talk more during in season about stashes on your roster. Guys, you want to tuck away. Maybe you got a little roster spot. Maybe you have a IR spot that you move somebody off to. So it freed up a spot on your roster that you can take somebody and stash them. Michael Penix Jr. Comes by way of Washington University, the Huskies, and ends up in Atlanta. Now, this is the one that everybody in the NFL just freaked out on, and was, if you ever seen an entire nation of football fans just go, at the same time, that happened when Michael Penix Jr. was picked. Not because he's a bad quarterback, but because of how early he was taken and where he went. They had just paid Kirk Cousins a ton of money, guaranteed, to come to Atlanta. Then they spend that high of a draft pick on another quarterback, and especially a guy who, by all accounts, is NFL ready right now. Because if I'm not mistaken, he spent 5 years in college. Now, with the COVID rule where they got an extra year of eligibility, plus all the I believe it's NLT money, where you can actually pay college players now and they can actually accept sponsorships, you're going to see a lot of guys staying in longer in college than coming out early. And Michael Penix was one of them. He had extra year of eligibility, played for his 5th year. This guy should be a starter in the NFL somewhere on some really bad team, but he's a backup to Kirk Cousins right now. Now, the only thing that's going to make this better is if they're lying to us about the progression of Kirk Cousins' recovery from an ACL tear on his plant foot. Now, remember, he and Aaron Rodgers both tore their ACL. However, they tore them on opposite legs. One is on a plant leg, Kirk Cousins. One is not, Aaron Rodgers. So the strain is going to be on Kirk Cousins. And if they're lying to us about the progression of his injury, or if they know something else that they're not telling us, that is the only thing that is going to make this pick make sense to those of us in the know in the fantasy community, or actually in the NFL period. Now, he does go into an O-line of 6th, which is phenomenal for a rookie. So if he does get any playing time, then that's going to be great, because he's already got weapons in place in Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. Those guys they're going to take a dip. Maybe not Bijan, because Bijan might actually benefit from having that. But I see Drake London and Kyle Pitts taking a dip if something happens to Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix Jr. has to step in. Maybe not that big of a dip, but a dip nonetheless. Lastly, Drake May from New England via UNC. So he was a Tar Heel. This kid, I think this kid should be a starter. The only problem is that Jacoby Brissett is ahead of him. So having Jacoby Brissett ahead of you, Jacoby's done well other places, just not well enough to keep a starting position. So keep an eye out on New England. They're not that good of a team this year. They're projected actually to be the number one pick, to have the number one pick in next year's draft, which means that they're going to be horrible this year. So I am hands off of New England, with the exception of Ramondre Stevenson, their running back, who they just paid a ton of money to in a new contract. And the only one that I want anything to do with, unless Brandon, well, maybe not even if Brandon Ayuk goes there. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Running backs. Jonathan Brooks, rookie running back for Carolina Panthers, coming out of Texas. This kid is touted as the better or the best running back in this class. I'm not sold on him. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm not sold on Carolina. It's kind of, I'm really TBD on this guy. And if any of you were wondering what TBD stands for, to be determined, I told you guys I would specify acronyms. So even those that are used outside of fantasy football. But Jonathan Brooks has Chuba Hubbard ahead of him. So maybe Chuba Hubbard might be a target for you early in the season, but Jonathan Brooks at some point in time probably wind up taking over in this backfield. Trey Benson from Florida State wound up in Arizona behind James Conner. Now, all reports coming out of camp is that Trey Benson is not ready for prime time, which means that those of you who are targeting James Conner, rest assured that your target is safe at the moment. James Conner is one of those what we call dead zone running backs. Remember, those are running backs that go rounds maybe 3 or 4 till about round 6. Those are guys who, if you go 0 RB, those are the guys you're going to wind up with. Now, I love James Conner. I think James Conner is a great fantasy asset. I personally just don't want that ride. 1, because of age, and 2, because of injury history. So I'm not really targeting James Conner in my mock drafts. And Trey Benson is fighting for a backup role right now in camp. So not really the glaring or the glaring example of success that we really want as we're looking for rookies to take that step into immediate fantasy success their rookie year. Blake Corum, look, this dude I'm hype about. Blake Corum, formerly a Michigan Wolverine. We got a lot of Wolverines. This one we got him and JJ McCarthy. But Blake Corum wound up with the Rams. Now I think that this is a great landing spot for him. And by the Rams' own admission, they had Kyren Williams, who was a outstanding fantasy running back last year. And they go out, and the description of Blake Corum by the Rams was that we saw a lot of things in this guy that reminded us of Kyren Williams. So wait a minute. You've got a guy who's a great running back for you, and you go and draft somebody who is exactly like him. That's a head scratcher for me, but that does give me a great insight into drafting Blake Corum later in my draft and stashing him on my bench, because if anything happens to Kyren Williams, I believe that Blake Corum can step right in and possibly give you like 70-75% of what Kyren Williams could. And if you can get that kind of production that late in your draft, that is outstanding for a replacement. So we're going to talk when we do our mock draft about handcuffing running backs. That's when you draft a starter, then the backup. So if you draft Kyren Williams, please try not to leave your draft without having Blake Corum as your backup at some point. Because if you do, if something happens to Kyren Williams and you don't have Blake Corum, you're going to be sorry. Because Kyren Williams is going first round, late first round, early second. Blake Corum is going like 13th round. So you can afford to draft him. If he doesn't work out, great, cut him. Maybe. And here's the other thing. If you have Blake Corum and you don't have Kyren Williams, and Kyren Williams does go down, you can do one of two things. One, you can hold on to him and ride it out. Or two, if you have a really strong RB room, then you can trade him to the Kyren Williams manager for another asset, whether that be a tight end that you need, whether that be a wide receiver that you need, whether it need to be an upgraded quarterback, whatever you need. At that point in time, you could probably name your price, and the Kyren Williams manager would be so desperate because they went hero RB and they lost their hero, so they're looking for another one. So they lost Batman. They're looking for a Robin. It's not as good as Batman, but he's still a hero. So next up, Jalen Wright. Now, Jalen Wright is a very interesting rookie. He's out of Tennessee, former Volunteer, now a Miami Dolphin, sitting behind Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert. Here's the interesting thing. The Miami backfield is basically a 1A, 1B type running back field or running back room. You have Devon Achane, who's probably going to get the majority of the work. Then you have Raheem Mostert. Now, personally, I don't want to draft both of these guys. I would love to draft at least one of them, but Devon Achane is going way early. Raheem Mostert's going a little later, and I like some of the guys that are around him at his ADP, which is average draft position. But Jalen Wright is in a perfect position to possibly walk into a starting role if injury strikes. So if Devon Achane goes down, Raheem Mostert's there, he's going to need a backup. And the way that Miami runs their offense, they need two running backs because Raheem Mostert is not going to carry the weight all season long if Achane gets hurt. So Jalen Wright could also be another one of those guys that you stash on your bench in case of injury. So it's one of those break glass in case of emergency type things. This could be your guy. Marshawn Lloyd out of USC. So former Trojan, now a Green Bay Packer. Marshawn Lloyd, look, wait on this kid. If you see something going down in Green Bay, if Josh Jacobs takes a hit, maybe look at him, see how they're using him in the preseason. That's another reason to watch preseason games, is to see how they're using these rookies, see how they're performing under pressure. So check out Packers preseason games, see how they're using Marshawn Lloyd, see how he looks, see how they're using A.J. Dillon, who's the other running back on this team. If Marshawn Lloyd looks better than A.J. Dillon, then maybe you think about drafting him, because then he can step into the role if Josh Jacobs goes down to injury. Kamari Vidal, formerly of Troy University, now with the Los Angeles Chargers. Look, Gus Edwards ain't getting any younger. J.K. Dobbins can't stay healthy. Next guy up, Kamani Vidal. So again, somebody you're probably not drafting, but definitely worth keeping on your radar. Okay. Last guy I want to talk about, and I had to actually go a little deeper for this guy, but I saw some tape of this kid. Absolutely love his tape. That is Audric Estime, formerly of Notre Dame. So former Fighting Irish, now with the Denver Broncos. And this kid is a godsend to Sean Payton. This kid reminds me a lot of Darren Sproles, and we saw that Darren Sproles back in his day was awesome for fantasy football. It was kind of a headache to start him sometimes because you never knew when he was going to pop off, but you knew when he did, he was going to win you a week. So Audric Estime, look, go to your search bar, type in NFL draft order, go to ESPN, the when it brings it up, and watch this kid's tape. This kid is electric. So check him out, Audric Estime. You won't be sorry. Now, into what I like to talk about, which is the wide receiver room. Marvin Harrison Jr., formerly of Ohio State. Sorry if I don't say this right. My wife will definitely be on my case about it. So let me rephrase this. Marvin Harrison Jr., formerly of the Ohio State, now an Arizona Cardinal. You're welcome, honey. Yeah, she's not only a Packer fan, but she's also a Buckeye fan. And it kind of pains me because I'm a fan. If you know, you know. So, but he is walking into probably the most hyped draft pick. I don't know, of our generation. I hate using that word, but I don't ever remember hearing about a wide receiver coming out of college that was this hyped. Okay. Son of Marvin Harrison, who was a phenomenal wide receiver with the Colts back in his day. Now his son carrying on this tradition. And by all accounts, this guy is the truth. So everything I'm hearing coming out of camp is that this guy walked in as an alpha. He walked in as the number one target for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals this year. Week one, off the jump, this kid is going to be the number one wide receiver for Arizona. No question about it. There is literally nobody on that team that's going to get more targets than this kid. So he is also going way higher than he should be in mock drafts. So if you want him, you're going to have to make a decision and pay up to get him. If he falls, snatch him up immediately. If by some miracle he makes it to the third round, auto draft. Okay. Next guy up, Malik Nabers, formerly of LSU. Yep, got a couple of LSU guys on this squad too. Now with the New York Giants. Now, sorry, let me rephrase that one too. The New York Football Giants. And if you don't know that one, then you're a lot younger than I am, and don't even worry about it. Just look up Howard Cosell and New York Football Giants. It's a fun story. Go check it out. But Malik Nabers winding up with the Giants. Look, he gets Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones gets a really bad rap. I've watched him play. He has his moments because he's in division. I really don't have a whole lot of nice things to say about him, but I don't have a lot of bad things to say about him. He was kind of a middle of the road quarterback, but he has flashes. I think that with the lack of weapons that he has had around him for his entire career, that this year having Malik Nabers, who some analysts put higher than Marvin Harrison Jr., this guy is an absolute bargain if you're looking for a shot at a rookie wide receiver who is going to be a number one target. There's nobody worth anything on this roster. They left the Saquon Barkley era. He left. He's in Philly. He's not coming back. So they revamped their entire team around this kid. So again, we're looking at another rookie receiver who is going to be absolutely phenomenal on his new team for the year one. There's nobody that he has to compete with for targets. Okay. They brought in Darren Waller at tight end last year. He's retired and he was absent last year, injured, didn't do anything. So Malik Neighbors is it in New York, and their defense ain't that great. Just being honest. So they're going to be having to throw the ball. They don't have that much of a run game. I mean, they've got Devin Singletary, and I'm really not sold on Singletary behind an offensive line that's that bad. Okay. Next guy up is Rome Odunze, and we talked about him earlier with Caleb Williams in Chicago, formerly of Washington University, another Husky in this class. Now, here's the knock on Rome Odunze, is that he's got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen competing for targets. He's a rookie, and he has a rookie quarterback. Guys, I don't know how else to tell you this, but when you have a rookie quarterback and a rookie wide receiver, that's not really a recipe for success. Unless they went to school together, which these two did not. One went to USC, one went to Washington. They didn't play together. They don't have that chemistry, nothing like that. Okay. So there's too much competition in Chicago for targets. I'm not looking at drafting Rome Odunze that high. Could he pop off because of injury? Could Keenan Allen's old butt get hurt? Of course. Could DJ Moore fall off? Sure. But does this guy have what it takes to step into that starter role? Look, unless they're running 3 receiver sets, this kid's on the bench. And it's going to take him being extremely efficient with the targets that he does get for him to get any kind of playing time outside of 3 receiver sets or an injury to happen. So something to keep an eye on. Now, this next guy, Xavier Worthy, formerly of Texas, and you remember this guy if you watched the combine. This is the guy who was the fastest man to ever run the 40-yard dash at the combine, set the whole world on fire, or a whole NFL world on fire. When this guy ran, he's a burner. And he's with the Chiefs, who have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid that know how to use a burner. Anybody remember Tyreek Hill? Yep. This kid is billed as Tyreek 2.0. We are yet to see that happen. Now, you got Rashid Rice, maybe facing suspension. You got Hollywood Brown in town. Hollywood Brown, I'm not scared of. Rashid Rice, yes, he could take targets away. The only thing I got to say about Xavier Worthy is that he's the third, maybe the fourth option on this team, because you've still got, or actually the fourth or the fifth option, because you got Patrick Mahomes throwing to Rashid Rice, Hollywood Brown, Travis Kelce, and Isaiah Pacheco out of the backfield. He's already got comfort and confidence in these guys because he's already played with them. They already had success with Rashid Rice last year when he was a rookie. So I like this kid. I really, really do. And I think he's in a great location. Don't draft him too high. Okay. Don't reach on this one. You can reach on Marvin Harrison. You can reach on Malik Neighbors. Cool. I'm down for that. Don't reach on this guy. Okay. Let him develop. Okay. Ladd McConkey. I really like Ladd McConkey, but with the whole Justin Herbert foot injury that's going on, I've kind of laid off my my desire to have him on my squad this year. Formerly a Georgia Bulldog, now with the Los Angeles Chargers. he is the number one target because Keenan Allen is in Chicago now. Mike Williams is with the Jets in New York, and I hate saying New York because they're both in Jersey. But anyway, Ladd McConkey, number one target in the Chargers wide receiver room. And you might be saying, well, wait a minute. What about Josh Palmer? Look, Josh Palmer is an adequate wide receiver, but everything that I'm hearing about this kid, Ladd McConkey, he came in, he already understood the playbook. His route running is crisp, it's sharp, it's on point. So they're impressed with him, and they're not going to be throwing that much. Well, I take that back. They're probably going to be throwing a decent amount because they don't have a good defense, but they don't want, yeah, that's better to say. They don't want to run, or they don't want to pass. They want to run. Okay. This is a Greg Roman, Jim Harbaugh team that wants to run the ball. So I'm not seeing a whole lot of production, and he's gonna have to be uber efficient to be anything. Next guy that we're gonna talk about real quick, Keon Coleman out of Florida State, now with the Buffalo Bills. So he's going from sunny California up to dreary Buffalo. Kid, get ready for the winter. That's all I gotta tell you. Has an outstanding quarterback, the number one quarterback in all of fantasy with Josh Allen. However, all reports that are coming out of camp is that this kid is not ready. Now, Buffalo does believe in him because they did keep moving back and they chose him. They lost Stefon Diggs. They replaced Stefon Diggs with Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman. Now, I'm not going to lie. When this kid came out, his press conference was hysterical. If you need a good laugh, go look up Keon Coleman's press conference. Hysterical. Loved it. This kid's an absolute fan favorite. Everybody should be rooting for this kid to succeed. But when it comes to fantasy football, I'm hands off. Brian Thomas Jr., again, an LSU Tiger, now a Jaguar. So he goes from one cat to another in Jacksonville. So he's kind of moving laterally, just over a couple of borders into Florida. He gets Trevor Lawrence as his quarterback, who is, again, TBD on whether or not he's actually going to live up to his expectation of being able to lead an NFL team to the promised land. Now, this kid is absolutely a downfield threat. They lost Calvin Ridley, but Christian Kirk still there. He's still Trevor Lawrence's go-to guy, but he has a problem staying healthy. So if Brian Thomas Jr. can make strides, and this is definitely somebody to watch in preseason to see how he's used and how he performs, that's something that you want to keep an eye on. Okay. Next guy up, and the last one that we're going to be talking about today, Ricky, last receiver. We're going to be talking about one tight end. Ricky Pearsall, formerly of Florida University. So he goes from being a Gator on the East Coast to being a 49er on the West Coast. He gets Brock Purdy as his quarterback and maybe one less person in the wide receiver room because we're all waiting on a shoe to drop on the Brandon Ayuk trade. There's a lot of rumors going out there. So something to keep an eye on about that and to watch during preseason. So another one to put on your watch list. Now, he is dealing with a shoulder injury, if I'm not mistaken. So he's dealing with that early in the season. That's not a good sign, but is definitely worth keeping an eye on when, not if, but when Brandon Ayuk gets traded. This kid could benefit greatly from that move. So the last person I'm going to talk about, and this is kind of where the list has one person on it, and that's Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, formerly a Georgia Bulldog, now with the Las Vegas Raiders. That just seems weird to say out loud, I know they've been in Vegas a couple of years, but it's still Oakland in my heart. I know I'm old fashioned, sue me. But uh the Vegas Raiders get Brock Bowers. Now, uh Myers, I forget his first name, but Myers was the tight end that they drafted last year that was supposed to be this great talent. Now, Brock Bowers, who, if it hadn't been for him, Lad McConkey would probably been the number one receiver on that Georgia team. But as it turns out, Brock Bowers was actually the leading receiver on the Georgia Bulldog team this past year. So this guy's absolutely one of a kind, phenomenal talent at tight end. And we're looking for great things to come out of him. Here's the only problem. He's got Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell as his quarterback. And he's on a team that really, 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 really wants to run. So I'm not really sure what to tell you about Brock Bowers, except the fact that he's going way too early in drafts that I've seen. I don't want anything to do with this kid. Um, let somebody else draft him. Let somebody else take that risk on him. I don't want to risk the onesie position like that. Now, if he pays off, he pays off. He's great. Fine. Great. Awesome. But if he doesn't, then you're stuck with streaming a tight end off the waiver wire all season because you got to pay up to get this guy in mock drafts. I'm not doing it. So, Brock Bowers, yes, great talent, great tight end, but will he be great for fantasy? He's got Jacoby Myers. He's got Davante Adams. So he's competing with guys already. He doesn't have the receptions all to himself, and he's not even splitting it with just one guy. He's splitting it with two. So you're on a team that doesn't want to throw, that wants to run the ball, that wants to play ball control, that has really questionable quarterback play. That's not draft high indicators for me. So what is draft high though, guys, is Amis Groceries, my last sponsor that I'm mentioning today. You can find them at 603 Jefferson Street inside of Gordon Square. And I was just down there the other day, spoke to Bradley down there, and he told me to make sure that I mentioned that they have over 200 items from 50 local vendors. So if you're looking to support the local vendors, the local items and production here in Lafayette, definitely go down and frequent Amis Grocery down at 603 Jefferson Street, downtown Lafayette. Tell them Neil sent you. Tell them Bradley I said, hey, inside of Gordon Square, they got a great little sitting area. Get you a little something from Amis and go chill out, eat there. The muffaletta sandwich, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Absolutely phenomenal. You think you're in New Orleans. That's how good it is. So at least, well, according to my wife. So, but go down there and check them out. Tell them Neil sent you. And guys, real quick, remember today's verse. I want you to go back and look at it. Remember as you're walking through your day that even though we're talking about rookies today, we're all rookies at some point in time. It is not until we gain experience, that we gain guidance, that we have things happen to us that build us up, that make us lean on the Lord for guidance, for direction, the same way that these rookies are leaning on the vets on their team to help them, to guide them, and to make them better people. We're leaning on the Lord. It's also important that you have a good support system around you. So get involved in a good church. Make sure that they're supportive, that they're loving, that you feel welcome there. I know I do at my church. So shout out to OSC. Thank you guys. Now, remember Luke chapter 5, verse 8. Hey, we all feel unworthy at times. we all feel like we're not worthy of God's love, his patience, his caring, the salvation that he came to give us. And then remember Acts chapter 4, verse 13, that when you do walk with the Lord, that when you have been around him, that it is evident to those around you without you even telling them. I pray that we all get to that point to where others can see a true change in us and a true change in how we react and behave to the world around us. Remember, we are in the world, not of the world. So we make sure that you're acting like that, and make sure that you're holding up the Christian life in a positive light. That's my prayer for you today. So remember, tune in next time. We're going to have Blaze on. We're going to be run through a mock draft. It's going to be epic. I am excited about this episode coming up. Can't wait for it. And remember, guys, football is good, but God is greater. We'll see you guys next time on Faith in Football. Till then, y'all have a blessed time.